We all face battles every single day. Little frustrations, big conflicts. But what if I told you that all of that is just the visible surface of a much deeper, invisible war? Well, in this explainer, we're going to break down 5 incredible truths from our source material that might just reframe everything you thought you knew about your daily struggles. We all know what this feels like, right? It's that tension with a coworker that just won't go away. It's that recurring argument with a family member. Or maybe it's just looking at the news and feeling completely frustrated with the world. These are the battles we can see and feel day in and day out. I mean, who isn't, really? That feeling of being constantly at odds with people, trying to navigate all these different personalities and disagreements, it is absolutely exhausting. But hang on a second. This is where our source material asks us to just pause and think about a pretty radical idea. What if our focus is on the wrong target entirely? What if the people who are causing all that friction aren't actually the real enemy? And we're not talking about a small change in thinking here. This is a complete 180, a total shift in our strategic approach to conflict. And it's all built around one single foundational statement. And there it is. This one line from the Apostle Paul changes everything. It suggests the real conflict is happening on a completely different plane of existence. So, if we're not fighting against people, who or what are we really up against? All right, this leads us straight into our first 2 truths, which are all about correctly identifying the opposition according to our source. Okay, so truth number 1 is absolutely crucial. People are not the enemy. They can be the agents of hurt, for sure, but they aren't the ultimate source. The source material suggests we should see people as pawns on the chessboard of time. Now, that doesn't excuse bad behavior, but it completely redirects our focus away from fighting each other and toward the real power that's moving the pieces. And check out how the theologian Ray Stedman puts it. He says, the battle is not against people, but against unseen spiritual powers. I mean, think about it. Our biggest headaches in life usually come from other people, right? But the point here is that our real battle isn't with them. It's with these invisible forces working behind the curtain. So, truth number 2. This enemy isn't just some vague, shadowy force of evil. Oh no, the source material is very clear that the opposition is a highly structured, intelligent, and organized regime. You gotta think less like a mystical fog and more like a spiritual mafia with a very clear chain of command. Let's break this down. Paul actually lists out the structure. First up, you have rulers and powers, which a lot of theologians see as high-ranking demonic authorities over entire nations and regions. Then you have the world forces of this darkness. These are the corrupt philosophies and evil systems that infect society. And finally, you have this spiritual forces of wickedness, kind of like the foot soldiers carrying out the plans. The big takeaway here is this isn't random chaos. It's an organized opposition with a diabolical game plan. Okay, so if we've identified the enemy, what does the battle itself actually look like? That brings us to our next 2 truths, which are all about the nature of this conflict. You know how movies and TV shows portray spiritual warfare, right? It's always this huge power struggle with flashy special effects and supernatural brawls. Well, our source material says, nope, that's not it at all. It's actually a truth struggle. The real battlefield isn't some mystical external place. It's right here, inside the human mind. The war is fought over what we believe, truth versus lies. And here's the kicker. This isn't a war you can just choose to sit out. According to the source, the very moment a person becomes a believer, bam, you're drafted. There's no neutral ground. You are on the battlefield for the rest of your life. And just listen to how Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones puts it, because it's pretty intense. He says, there is no discharge in this war. He will fight us to our deathbed. That just powerfully underscores how relentless this reality is. The enemy is persistent and will engage you right to the very end. So this brings us to our final and honestly most profound truth. Not only are we in a war, but the rules of engagement have fundamentally changed. Getting this piece of intelligence is an absolute game changer. The source uses this brilliant analogy to explain it. Just imagine God managing 2 different households throughout history. First, there's the household of ancient Israel. Second, there's the household of the modern church. And each one has its own very distinct set of house rules. Okay, now look at this because this perfectly illustrates the shift. In the first household, Israel, they were operating under the law. The rule on forgiveness was conditional. You must forgive in order to be forgiven by God. It was a requirement to earn something. But now, for the church, in the new household under grace, the entire dynamic is flipped on its head. We're told to forgive because we have already, past tense, been forgiven in Christ. Our forgiveness from God is the motivation for our action, not the reward for it. Knowing which house rules you're living under is absolutely vital. So we've got all this new intelligence. We understand these 5 truths. The big question is, what do we do with it? How does this change our approach to conflict? Let's put it all together. So here is your new intelligence briefing, the quick and dirty recap. 1. People are not the enemy. 2. The real enemy is organized. 3. The battlefield is your mind. 4. You're in this for life. And 5, and this is so important, the rules you fight by today are based on grace, on what's already been won for you. And that's why this all matters so much. This understanding is designed to pull us out of that cycle of personal bitterness and resentment toward people, and instead, move us towards smart, strategic, and focused action against the real source of the conflict. So, if we really take this framework to heart, that the difficult person in your life is not the real enemy, and the real war is about what you believe, what happens next? And that brings us to the final, lingering question our source leaves us with. Armed with this new intelligence brief, knowing what you know now, how will you change your strategy in the battles you're going to face tomorrow?